Hey community, just checking in, walking down South Broad Street back to my office. Was a little frustrated, which is why I'm shooting this video. I spent the morning in Eviction Court. I'm a landlord, and a lot of get rich quick propaganda out there for how easy it is to be a landlord. I've been a landlord for quite a number of years, and ain't quite as easy as the get rich quick schemes tell you it is. And today's one of them real good examples of that. I had a property I rented about a year ago to a young couple. We qualified them. They checked out, and we rented to them. Really nice unit we had just fixed up, and they pretty much subsequently after moving in, very quickly started not paying rent, coming up with every excuse under the sun. And one of my problems is if you follow me on social media, I'm a believer in people, and I like to believe that people who make mistakes, when given the opportunity, can make those mistakes right. So I always have a tendency, if it's me, I'm the landlord here. If I had a client who was the landlord, would have certainly suggested they be more firm in their handling of the situation. But with me as the actual client here, I gave them more leverage than I gave them more leeway than I probably should have, or that I know I should have. But I like that about me, and I'm not looking to change that. Not for anybody, not even a tenant who doesn't deserve that type of treatment. So it blew up in my face, and even though we reached some other agreements, they didn't keep those agreements either. So here we are in court. I filed formally, and we had an attorney, and they didn't show for the roll call, the tenants, so the court issued me a default judgment in the amount of the outstanding rent. But they also require that it's in Philadelphia, that the landlord hang around for an hour or so, see if the tenant arrives late. They want you to try to resolve any dispute with the tenant, through like a court-appointed mediator or mediation process, as part of the eviction process. So I realized I didn't mind doing that, but I also knew that they weren't going to keep any agreement that they made, because they haven't. I've already mediated in my own mind, even though it wasn't a formal mediation. I already know the fabric of these folks. So, but they eventually showed right before the deadline, and so I went and sat down with them. We carved out something that I think we could both agree with. They agreed, I agreed. And when we went to memorialize it with the attorney, they started adding that they wanted me to do repairs to the property. They were claiming that we had the place in shambles, and that I was a slumlord, which is far from the case. I have the marketing photos before they moved in that we used. You see the place is a really nice place, and any deterioration in the condition has been them living in the property. But again, they didn't show me any photos. I wasn't aware of anything. So, but that's what they claimed they were going to tell the judge if I didn't agree to do certain things. So once they started that, I was like, we're just going to go before the judge. But truthfully, as a landlord, that's a real risk, because even though the facts, in my opinion, are in my favor, you don't know how a judge is going to, interpret. And the tenants they're a young couple. The wife is pregnant, noticeably. So you don't know if that might have an influence on how the judge might perceive them, and any measure of etiquette that the judge wants to do, or measure of consideration the judge might want to do. You also don't know how the judge will interpret, even though I have all my licenses for the property, even though I have before photos for the property. I don't know what these pictures are going to look like that they're going to show them. And it wouldn't surprise me if they didn't do intentional harm to the property just to make the photos not look well. You know, they claimed they were having problems with in the basement, that there was a whole bunch of mold buildup, and so who knows what they were going to show, but obviously they were going to try to paint me as a slumlord and them as the victim, even though it's me who pulled them into court after months and months of failure to pay, and all the proper licensures that I have. So ultimately, I decided it wasn't worth running that risk. Just kind of my spidey senses in me saying, look, I'm for the judge on this. If I can get them to sign an agreement that they'll move out by a particular date, maybe waive any past due rents that they owe, or any obligation I might have to, or ability I might have to go collect any past due obligations they might have in exchange for possession. So even though I didn't want to do that, even though I wanted it to be more punitive for them, and I certainly deserved the judgment, that's what my attorney suggested. Get possession of this place as soon as possible. And I appreciate that advice, and that's really what I need here. We got a mortgage payment on this property. Every month we've been making that mortgage payment. That's tough to do when you have no income coming in from it, for an extended period. So possession's key. So that's what I did. We signed an agreement for them to move out by August 31st, and that in exchange for that, I agree to waive any outstanding balance, thousands and thousands of dollars of outstanding rents that they owe me. And while I must admit I signed that, it didn't feel good to sign. Actions should have consequences. In this case, they're really not. So a little pissed off about that, which is why I decided to walk back instead of Uber back to the office, blow off some steam here, record this video. So not suggesting you shouldn't be a landlord, not suggesting you shouldn't invest in real estate, in investment real estate in Philadelphia. I'm a big fan of that, and but just wanted to make sure people understand some of the fragility and exposure you have as a landlord, and sometimes you have to make a business decision when you want to make a principal decision. It's not the first time I've had to do that. So these tenants will walk away with no further obligation, and truth be told, I'd be surprised if they move out by August 31st. So we had to pay about $750 for this first wave of court process. It's probably prudent for me, or it's definitely prudent for me to file. In 10 days, I'm allowed to file for possession. So even though they signed an agreement to move out August 31st, I can either choose to wait till August 31st and hope that they do what they say they're going to do to the court. They sign this in the court. But if they don't do that on the 31st, then I have to file for possession for sheriff lockout. And who knows how long that'll take. We'll be in September then. And, you start tiptoeing on the holidays, and sheriffs don't like to do as many lockouts then. So I'm like, in 10 days I can file that. But that costs money to file. But it's good money to pay at this point. It's just a business decision. So if they move out on the 31st as agreed at this point, I will have, depending on how you look at it, you might say I wasted that money. Certainly not a waste, just for the comfort of knowing that shortly after the 31st, if they don't move out, which if I was a betting man, that's what I would bet on, that we could have the lockout. So that's what we're going to do. So I'll keep you informed. Maybe I'll do a video and show you how the house was left. Show you some before and after pictures. All right, have a good day.